What is up, everybody? Let's get into these games on Saturday. I'm recording this right at like 3 o'clock. So the Florida game just started. Vanderbilt, A&M's wrapping up. Vanderbilt took care of A&M. A&M's now lost 4 straight. Iowa State, Kansas, Iowa State just absolutely dominated Kansas on the defensive side of the floor. They weren't even getting good production from their main shot makers like Lipsey and Momcilovic, however you say his name, in the first half, and they still were up 10. That's just how dominant their defense was. And I hate to jump on the narrative that Kansas is better with Darren Peterson off the floor, but Kansas looked better with Darren Peterson off the floor. Like, they went on their run in the second half to cut the lead to 12 with Darren Peterson on the bench. They went on their run in the first half with Darren Peterson on the bench when Melvin Council banged a couple of threes and got Kansas back within striking distance in the first half. When Darren Peterson's on the floor, at least against this Iowa State defense, the offense didn't look as good. The offense against Iowa State without Darren Peterson and the offense against Arizona without Darren Peterson just seemed to flow so much better with Melvin Council as the primary ball handler. It's like it's an offense full of guys that know how to play together. And then when Darren Peterson's in there, it's kind of like get the ball to DP and get out of his way, and he's going to make some tough shots. I don't like it's one game against a really, really good Iowa State defense. We haven't really seen that problem with Kansas this year. Like I thought against Texas Tech, the offense looked fine with Darren Peterson in the game, and then he clutched up for them down the stretch. Against BYU, obviously, the offense was no problem whatsoever. Against Iowa State, the first time, like Darren, like that hasn't been a narrative until recently because they beat the number one team in the country without Darren Peterson. Then this Iowa State game is definitely going to add on to that narrative. But I think it's worth noting that in the last two games, Kansas's offense has looked better without Darren Peterson on the floor. And that kind of thing's going to happen when you don't play a lot of basketball. And now I'm worried. And Kansas was a team, if you guys have listened to my content, that I've been really, really bullish on all year. All year. Not even all year. Over the last month and a half of the season with Darren Peterson on the floor, I think it's the best starting five in the country. But now it's kind of thing like the continuity thing as we get closer and closer to March. I don't know if you can trust this team. I don't want to overreact to one loss in a really deep conference against a team like Iowa State that I wasn't that high on going into this game. But obviously they're a wagon, especially at home. Defensively, they were just smothering Kansas. And Darren Peterson wasn't the only one to have a bad day today. But Dungo was nowhere near the force he was in this game offensively compared to Arizona. Darren Peterson had a few turnovers. They were just blitzing everybody every time they got the ball on the inside, and Kansas didn't know how to deal with it. There were so many times whether it was Council, Peterson, or Tiller, they tried to like pass the ball out. They tried to kick it out, and then there just wasn't a Kansas player where they expected a Kansas player to be, whoever the ball handler was. So shout out Iowa State's defense. Tipsy's a dog. Momcilovic is a dog. The threes that they were making in the second half too. It's like if this team's making those type of shots, you're not beating them. And Momcilovic, it was like late in the shot clock, took a sidestep fading away three in the corner, and it was just fucking pure. That guy's a problem, and he wasn't even shooting the ball well in the first half. They come out in the second half, drop a play for him. He's wide open. He splashed it. He gets going. And then, yeah, the only really kind of life they had in the second half, Kansas, was when DP was on the bench. They went on like a 12-2 run, cut the lead to 12. Still wasn't enough. Kansas is still a really good team. Iowa State's a really good team. I think I was foolish to be as low as on them as I was, but they did have a couple of weird losses, like they just lost to TCU. But TCU's a good team. They just beat Oklahoma State in overtime, I believe. At least they were winning last time I checked. Let me double check that so I don't sound like an asshole. But I'm pretty sure they beat them Florida up 10-5 early. Duke absolutely took care of Clemson from start to finish. I said 11.5 on the preview episode. The line moved to 13.5. They lost by 13 on a bullshit three, man. A bullshit three with like 4 seconds to go. So if you took Clemson at 13 or Duke at 13.5, I am so sorry. It was just an all-time bad beat. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me see if Oklahoma State held on. I'm pretty sure they did. No, or TCU held on, and they did. Okay, 11-8 in OT. Yeah, good win for TCU as they. I don't know. I wonder where they are in the wins above the bubble. What other games happened? Michigan took care of UCLA. Nebraska took care of whoever they played. Northwestern. And I think that's all right now that we're really. I mean, there's not much to talk about in the Duke Clemson game. They play really good defense. Like Duke doesn't get talked about enough for their defense. They held Clemson to less than 40% from the field. They are just stifling. They have athletes on the perimeter, and then obviously Boozer on the interior. Has gotten beat by some elite bigs like JT Toppin had a good day. Caleb Wilson had a good day. Henry Visar had a good day against Caleb in the paint, but they are a really good defensive team. Duke is, and I don't think they get enough credit for it. At least, or maybe they do, but not on my timeline anyway. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're at right now. We'll watch the rest of these games. Hopefully, we can come back with some W's. Been a brutal start to the. I had Kansas money line and Kansas to cover. They did. So, but we will see. I'll talk to you guys later tonight after the rest of these games. I'm not going to be able to watch these as closely. It is Valentine's Day, and I do have to work, and it's going to be really, really busy. And the other night, oh my god, the other night, my boss was like, yeah, let's make sure the Olympics are on the television. That's fine when there's no ranked basketball going on. If Texas Tech and Arizona isn't on the TV, I'm going to have an aneurysm. Need to watch that game. I think Tech can cover, but I thought Kansas would cover too. I think I undersold how hard of a place it is to play in Iowa as well, Iowa State. But yeah, either way, we have Purdue, Iowa, Arizona, Texas Tech. Some good games coming up here. And yeah, I'll pause it now and then I'll swing it to myself. We're gonna go through the rest of the slate, and I do want you guys to know that I did have to work through the Texas Tech Arizona game. We did get that game on the TV, though. You better don't get it mistaken. We did have Purdue, Iowa on the TV as well. I'm talking middle of the rush here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sprinting over to the host stand. We got 200 covers tonight. There's like, I don't know, 30 tables in the restaurant, in the whole restaurant, 40 tables in the whole restaurant. And I'm running over to the host stand and in the middle at 7 o'clock in the middle of the rush because I needed to see this Texas Tech Arizona game, and everything that could have went wrong today went wrong today. It started off with a brutal beat if you had the spread in Duke at 13.5, and I did. However, I did put the spread down at 11.5 when I recorded my Saturday preview episode. So we're counting it as a win on the Saturday preview episode because I said 11.5. And I learned something this weekend that I've had feelings about over the last few weekends, and it's once these lines open for Saturday, if they're minus, take the minus, take the favorite. If you like the favorite, take the favorite early. If you like the underdog, take the underdog late. Because 2 games today opened up. Like Duke opened up at 11.5 point favorites. They closed at 13.5. Florida opened up at 9.5 point favorites. They closed at 12.5 point favorites. Take the favorites early if you like the favorites to cover. Wait to take the underdogs to cover at the plus the points because that was the case also with Kansas, who ultimately didn't cover, but they opened at plus 6.5. They closed at plus 8.5. Texas Tech opened at plus 6.5. They closed at plus 9.5. So wait for the plus money. Act efficiently with the minus money, and you can get some good value in the college basketball market. At least that's what I've seen recently. Let's talk about Texas A&M and Vanderbilt momentarily. I feel like Vanderbilt's a team that doesn't get talked about enough, but they have so much experience in terms of continuity with one another. Most of their starters were on this team from a year ago, and they have a lot of talent. So then when guys like Tyler Tanner, who is their leading scorer, he is their engine of the offense, he is their best player, goes 2 for 10, they have Devin McLaughlin, Tyler Nickel to pick up the slack, A.K. Okereke to pick up the slack. Like they have guys that can score. They all have guys that can shoot the 3. They rebound well, they defend well. This Vanderbilt team is solid. They played really, really good defense today. It wasn't their offense. I think they're a top 10 KenPom offense. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back and check. But they're an offensive basketball team, and I was more impressed with their defense today because even though they scored 82, there were spurts in this game where they just couldn't get a bucket offensively, but their defense kept Texas A&M at an 8 to 9 point range in terms of distance, in terms of gap that Texas A&M would have to fill. So when Vanderbilt's offense wasn't going, when there was a lid on the basket, they were able to keep this game a little bit extended because of their defensive play. And then after this Vanderbilt game is where you lost me. So the rest of today, the rest of the episode is vaguely box score watching and vaguely and then the occasional look over. I was able to see the end-ish of Texas Tech, Arizona. Who hit the 3? Was it Atwell that hit the 3 at the end? I couldn't tell if it was Atwell or Jalen Petty. Okay, so Jalen Petty went 0 for 2 from 3. So it was Atwell, and JT Toppin was just an absolute monster. That guy, Big 12 Player of the Year last year for a reason. And there were 2 teams that played in the Big 12 today One of them is regarded as a national championship contender. The other one's just regarded as Texas Tech. We need to start talking about Texas Tech like a national championship contender. And I was wrong in my preview a good amount. I underrated Iowa State. I think I might have maybe not even overrated Kansas. I just think I really underrated Iowa State. I was wrong about them. I was wrong about Iowa keeping it close against Purdue. I was wrong about, like, Purdue blew them out of the water. I was wrong about NC State. They lost to Miami. I was never wrong about the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And they are a team that just keeps providing for me. They never let me down. Kansas has let me down before. Arizona's let me down. Gonzaga's let me down more than a few times. Texas Tech is a team that's never let me down. They are a legitimate national championship contender. There's one contender in the Big 12 today that just got blew out on the road, and then there's another contender in the Big 12 today that just beat the number one team in the country on the road. That is the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who have JT Toppin, who just scored 30 against one of the best defenses in the country. They have Christian Anderson and Atwell, two guys that are top 13 in three-pointers made per game. They play good defense. They rebound well. They shoot. I think they have three guys shooting above 37% from three. The Texas Tech Red Raiders proved to everybody today what I've been saying for the last month, and that is they are a legitimate national championship contender. They're a problem, folks. They're a problem. I don't think there's a better guard big combo in the country than Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. And JT Toppin also had his worst game against Kansas. Christian Anderson didn't play. He opens up that entire offense, one of the best guards in the country. Texas Tech is a real national championship contender. And depending what side of who's in their region, I will most likely have them coming out of my region. And I was like this before Arizona. This is just icing on the cake. Koa Pete did get hurt in this game. That's worth noting. Arizona is still a very good basketball team. Let's not get it mixed up here. Very good basketball team. They just haven't had to play the gauntlet of the Big 12. Kentucky, Florida. If Xavier Lee starts hitting threes the way he was hitting threes against Kentucky, then Florida is a national championship contender. But their guard play has just been way too inconsistent, especially beyond the arc. Florida does worry me, though, because if Xavier Lee isn't hitting his threes, they don't make threes. They don't shoot. They were 29% from beyond the arc going into this game against Kentucky. Xavier Lee goes 7 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3. They're 36% from beyond the arc. That's the difference. If this Florida team can start shooting threes consistently, that's the difference. They were also 22 of 32 from on the free throw line. Missed a bunch of clutch free throws down the stretch to keep Kentucky in this game, who cut it to 5 with like a minute left. That really worries me about this Florida team, is they are inconsistent at the line, and they're very inconsistent with the three ball. You can't have your entire offensive three-point output dependent on one player, and that player is Xavier Lee. And he was 20%, but he was in the 20s going into this game against Kentucky. And it's a really good win for Florida. I think Kentucky was really finding their stride. 3 straight wins, win over Arkansas, win over Tennessee. Florida's just a real gauntlet, man. There's so much size. What was the rebounding totals here? 17 offensive rebounds. That's just ridiculous. They're the best rebounding team in the country. They have the best bigs in the country. They're bigger than everybody. They're a good defensive team. It's just the 3-point shooting. That's all it is. And if Xavier Lee can hit 40% of his threes, 43% of his threes on a consistent night, which he hasn't been able to do this year, and they're still a top 5 KenPom, top 5 Torvik team, if he can hit his threes, this Florida team is going to be a real issue, ladies and gentlemen. As far as the other games, man, I honestly could not tell you. I could not tell you. Gonzaga, still don't believe in them a lot. They reek of early exit. Inconsistent guard play. They lost to Portland. They almost lost to Santa Clara. They got blown out by Michigan. They reek of an early exit. Louisville with a good win, I guess. Michael Brown with 28. He's finding his stride. This Louisville team is going to be dramatic. A lot of fighting in basketball. A&M Vanderbilt got chippy. St. John's Providence. How many players got ejected in that game? Holy shit. Let's see what else happened. Shout out the Mountaineers. Big win on the road against UCF, who has completely fallen apart ever since I glazed them. They're bad. Virginia, nice win over Ohio State. Ohio State's a good squad, man. They're likely a tournament team. I think that depends, though. But good win for Virginia. Didn't watch any of it. Ohio State's a good team. That's the only reason I'm saying that. Louisville over Baylor. Yeah, Michael Brown, 28. That's just stupid. BYU went into overtime against Colorado. BYU. Does that say 38 for Rob Wright? Am I reading that correctly? 38 for Rob Wright? 39 for Rob Wright? That's ridiculous. I don't know the context of this BYU Colorado game, but overtime against Colorado just tells me everything I need to know and everything that I've already known. If you listen to my content, BYU's beyond fraudulent. They're not making it to the second weekend if they get a tough second or first round matchup. They're not. Yeah, I think I talked about it all, man. I really wait. Houston blew out, kind of blew out Kansas State. Held them to 19 in the first half. It's just ridiculous. Arkansas beat Kansas. Good win for Arkansas. Let me check out what this box score was like for UNC without Caleb Wilson. I would imagine that Visar or Henry Visar had a monster day. Let's see. No, not really. He had 15. Jaron Stevenson with 19. Luka Bogovac with 15. Seth Trimble with 19. Okay. So it was just a group effort against the Pitt Panthers team that fucking sucks. All right, that'll do it. I'm gonna wait now. We have a few big games on Big Monday. Houston, Iowa State. Houston's another team I'm really bullish on. I think the two best teams in the Big 12 as of right this instant. Houston. I don't know. Kansas is still really good. I'm still not done with Kansas. It's recency bias to have Kansas. I don't know who the big. I just think Arizona and BYU are step below everybody else. And even though Arizona was I was lower on Arizona. People that listen know I was lower on Arizona before they lost 2 straight. And they're still a really good team. They're still a national championship contender. I'm not saying they're not. But people that were listening to me knew that I wasn't as high on Arizona as everybody else was. But they're a really good basketball. I just think that, listen, it's a big 4. It's a big 4 in the Big 12. I think BYU is closer to UCF and West Virginia than they are to the other 4. I really do. It's just people see AJ DeBanson and they cream their pants. Anyway, that's a college basketball Saturday. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're listening to the podcast. I'm going to send it now to the Big Monday recap.